And 3, 2, 1, action. Hello everybody, this is Kaz Danazon. For anybody who is involved with the chaotic trading card gaming community, you may know me as Elemental Draco 218. I am also known as the Chaotic Historian and a veteran chaotic player. As we roll towards the end of 2020, everyone has begun to realize that Adobe Flash Player will be closing down. So with that in mind, I wanted to take this time to make somewhat of a preservation video, if you will, of any Flash operated websites that some previous Draco, Chaotic, and Girls and Gorps websites operated from. With that being said, let's go ahead and begin to talk about what Chaotic Now or Never was. As you'll see here, as we click on this one link found on the Wayback Machine, props to them for keeping this place archived, you'll begin to notice that everything is incredibly outdated. Slow on the go, but as Apex Marketing boots up, we will begin to talk about what Apex Marketing is and was. Apex Marketing was a leading company that was responsible for the marketing for Chaotic Now or Never, as well as a variety of sports-operated materials, like the bike board and so on. Owned by Brian C. Gannon to this day, the Chaotic franchise has evolved into something that some of us may have never really saw coming. Something that has sparked a generation and a fandom unlike any other trading card game before. You know, with it having over 4 different revisions from Draco Heads to Girls and Gorps. With it having over 4 revisions from Draco Heads to Girls and Gorps to Now or Never, and then the current Americanized version of Chaotic, we've had a chance to look at this game evolve as if it was one of our own kids. Going back to viewing some of these sites, one of the biggest websites that rings true and near to my heart as being as one of the things that rings true and dear to my heart as being a veteran Chaotic fan is the old advertisement site for Chaotic Now or Never that was offered up by chaoticusa.com. So we're going to go ahead and take a look at this. Now, it's going to boot up and you're going to hear some beautiful sounds. That heart-pounding sound as the intro kicks in place. And they had so many plans for this website and for this card game. They were having the idea to operate it as an OS game for phones that during the time were incredibly outdated. And we were also transitioning into the life of Android and iPhone as well. They had plans to port over to Xbox and GameCube. They had an online interface, and they were trying to modernize it in a way that had never been done before, making every single card unique, offering a variety and intricate storylines for each and every card. So let's take a look at the website now. I'm going to be quiet for just a moment to let you guys take in the sound effects, because these sound effects will no longer be available as of January 1st, 2021. So let's go ahead and take a quick look at the introduction for the website. And let's go ahead and take a look and see what it says, what it tells us about the game. It says that Chaotic is a new collectible trading card game that unlocks the Param universe and adventures within the Overworlds and the Underworlders. The players can upload protected virtual card codes into the Chaotic Interactive War Manager, which forms a community of advanced technology game playing and virtual card trading. The War Manager is an interactive game of varying levels that can be played anywhere, anytime by everyone through wireless or land-based advanced technology. Chaotic Now or Never. There was nothing like it. So the story follows with 2 young boys, Tom and Kazdan, who accidentally stumble across some rings. The Ring of Narin and the Ring of Athala. Now, the Ring of Narn was named after the ship in Grolls and Gorks that the characters were flying on when they crash landed on what would later be called Param in the Chaotic Universe. And these two boys here that you'll see me circulating... Oh, I forgot that it did that. That you'll see me circulating the mouse. Ah, it's so beautiful. Sorry, that is the altar that contains the Chaos Rock, or the Dracostone, or the Kathaka, depending on which universe you're talking about. Now, these two boys here, Tom and Kazdan, essentially represent the two main tribes, Overworlder and Underworlder. Just like in the American version, the only difference is that Kazdan is more methodical and, well, obviously evil. So the story goes as follows. The story of Chaotic is the epic tale of two boys, Tom and Kazdan, and their adventures in Param, a volatile land where fierce battles are fought trying to capture the Chaos Rock and the control of Param. One day, Tom, a smart and curious 12-year-old, finds a pair of rings in his backyard. The rings Athala and Narn are really magical portals to a clandestine realm known as Param. However, before Tom has a chance to uncover the secret of the rings, the school bully Kazdan shows up. Kazdan is a strong 14-year-old boy who is Tom's never-failing rival. Kazdan spots Tom examining one of the rings and manages to steal it from him. Kazdan is unaware of the other ring that is in Tom's backpack shortly thereafter, and both boys discover that putting on the rings enables them to enter Param. Param is a place of great adventures and epic tales. It is inhabited by 5 tribes of creatures: the Danians, the Deep Ones, the Mepedians, the Overworlders, and the Underworlders. The Overworlders and Underworlders are constantly warring, while the other tribes keep to themselves and have an air of mystery about them. The Overworlders are good, kind, innovative, and curious. The Underworlders are evil, malicious, destructive, and dominating. Tom finds his friends among the Overworlders, while Kazdan finds his with the Underworlders. The two tribes are both interested in peace and Param, but where the Underworlders want peace through supremacy, the Overworlders want peace through diplomacy. The Overworlders and the Underworlders are of similar strength and size, however individuals in the two tribes vary greatly. To get the upper hand in the struggle between the Overworld and the Underworld, both groups search for the legendary artifact known as the Chaos Rock. With control of the Chaos Rock, either group could rule Param. Hence, the two groups constantly search and battle for the stone. The Chaos Rock and the struggle to secure it is the catalyst for endless adventures in the storytelling universe of the world of Param. Param has been built with great level of detail, permitting all creatures and locations to have their own integrated story. The land has its legends, and the places have their past. A matrix of storylines are carefully woven into a tight universe filled with the storytelling fabric. And so that's basically what Chaotic is, as far as the storyline. But let's look at some of the characters real quick. Ah, that sound is still beautiful. So, at the top, you'll see the 6 main characters of the franchise. You have Tom, Kazdan, Takinam, Kaor, Entris, and Madcap. Now, obviously, we know who Tom is, and I'm not going to read through all this because I'm limited on the time that I have to record. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to let this storyboard scroll down, and if you guys would like to take a look back and read over these, by all means, please feel free. So going ahead, and we're starting with Tom, here we go. Now, the cool thing about these characters is that each one of them has been specifically made to be unique. The idea behind Now or Never was that they were going to offer a wide variety of diversity. And unfortunately, this wide variety of diversity also offered off some controversy within the first set. It wouldn't be until the second set of cards that we got where they did a complete overhaul and revision of the characters as well as their storylines. And then eventually we got the third set, the Rage set, which led up to revealing the Danians, the Mepedians, and the Deep Ones. To my understanding and to my memory and recollection, there were a few characters who were a little too diverse, a bit racial, if you will. Examples like Skjold and Maui were deemed controversial to some people, but the items were marketed towards younger audiences, and kids didn't really catch on. to a lot of this stuff, but the parents did. Now, to my research, I haven't found anything supporting this, but I do remember growing up hearing a few things about it. So that's the only proof that I can offer you guys at this time. We did also get a chance to look at what would have been a sixth tribe known as the Frozen, and it was even hinted in the book of Hinya Iha, which stated that they were fox-like in nature and ruled by a female of the same name. Interest also, while we're here, had an extreme revision that we never got to see outside of the Rage set. This one that you're looking at right now is actually not her original design, but was the one that they planned to use in the promo. Now, the beta images that were used for the American Chaotic brand were not originally the cards that we got. They actually looked incredibly like this, believe it or not. They were trying to make it in a more childish aspect before 4Kids acquired the full rights to it. I actually have one of the beta images for Slurk, who was originally known as Bear. And I will include this after I get through the characters as a still image, just for you guys to look at. And just like in the American version, you have the two leaders of the Overworlder and the Underworlder. You have Kaor, who leads the Underworld, and then you have Max, or also known as Madcap in this version, who leads Kaor, who leads the Underworld, and Madcap, who leads the Overworld. And of course, their two sidekicks, Takinam and Interest. And then their human counterparts, Tom and Kazdan. Let's take a look at the cards. And this is where it really gets interesting, because I'm not really sure if this template that they used was supposed to be for the online format, or if it was just used in general. I apologize, my camera cut off, so we're going to go ahead and start over. Going back to the characters, you had, just like in the American version, you had Madcap, who ruled the Overworld, and Kaor, who ruled the Underworld. And just like with either of the tribes, there's always that female counterpart that tends to follow them in the battle. And for Kaor, that would be Takinam, as well as his human counterpart, Kazdan. And then for the Overworld, Interest, who would follow Madcap into battle, along with their human counterpart, Tom. Now, while we're on it, let's go ahead and look at the cards. And this is really where it gets interesting. Now, I don't 100% know if these templates were originally going to be used for the online format that they were working on at that time. I do know that in the beta versions for the online Americanized version of Chaotic, we did get a chance to look at some of these templates. For example, the icon up here for location was actually used on the beta. The name Sergeant Schultzman, which was originally Tartarek's name, was used for a player's name. So, we can assume that whoever beta tested it was a fan of Sergeant Schultzman. But, taking a look at the cards real quick, and this will be the same for every card, and we'll look through every single card while we're here. You have your section where the name would be, as well as their number, on the top left corner. You'll also notice their rarity, their tribe and association, also known as clans, their flavor text, and their code. Over here in the bottom right corner, you'll find their weapon specialties, and on the bottom left, you'll see their disciplines, which come in the same as we would see in the American version: courage, power, wisdom, and speed. At the very bottom, you'll notice an icon that may look unfamiliar to you, and that is your spell counter. And all four sides of the card, you'll notice 0, 1, 2, and 3, and we'll talk about that here in a little bit. The website only offered a small variety of cards to look at. We got a chance to look at Ulfedin, Tengeth Toeborn, Interest, and Vidav. Now let's go ahead and read over the creature cards real quick. And this is the raw description. It says that the creature cards are the backbone of the collection card game. Each creature card represents one creature in the game universe. Creature cards have different rarity, and they are all supplied with a unique code that enables the player to register them on the website. There are cards that become virtual cards, and the player can use them to play other chaotic players on the website. The creature cards hold the statistics to the creature, and the statistics are the strengths and weaknesses of the creatures in the four disciplines. These disciplines are strength, courage, wisdom, and speed. The disciplines are assigned scores from 5 and up in intervals of 5. In addition to the discipline values, the creature cards also provide information on the creature cards Underworlder, Overworld, Mepedian, Danian. The creature's weapon specializations and the creature's spell use. The creature card also displays the card number and the card's rarity. Now here we currently have 4 tribes. We never did get a chance to see the betas for the deep ones, later known as the Marillions. So let's go ahead and look at the Underworlders real quick. Here we happen to have Bareth Beyond, Madness, who was my personal favorite, who never made it into the American version. His name was mentioned in one of the chaotic episodes where Kazdan was helping with the Underworld prison with the aid of Grook and Tom. Madness's name was hinted at being Klesh. I was actually one of the first people to register that on the chaotic forums, and I take that with pride because this was my favorite character, and seeing so much of it as a hint of him being a character in the American version was a big nostalgic moment for me. You also happen to have Bugga, who was in the Fire and Stone set, if I remember correctly. And then you also have Lord Von Bloot, who is also a card featured in the Rage set. Let's take a look at the Danians real fast. We happen to have Keenan Defraud. We have Malash, or Malish, depending on how you would like to pronounce it. You also have Valini Rex Levan. And last but not least, Scartalus, Powerhouse. Loading the Mepedians here real quick, which for some reason always takes a little bit longer than most. We get a chance to look at Malvadine. We get a chance to look at Ubelquin. I probably pronounced that one wrong. Prince Mudinu. And of course, Sobjek. Moving on, we're going to take a look at the location cards. Actually, let me go back, because I forgot something. So, you'll notice at the top of each card that there are numbers, 0, 1, 2, and 3. In the original format for the game, you would rotate cards or put tokens on these numbers to signify how many spells you have used or wasted. I don't recall players ever actually doing that, but I do remember reading it in an earlier version of the rule booklet that I had translated years and years ago, which I'm hoping to put out a new revision for. That way it's translated more properly from its original language. But moving on, locations. Locations are very simple. Again, just like the creature cards, you have their rarity, their style, disciplines and boosts, data, and codes. Before the battle, each chaotic player builds a location deck that corresponds to the makeup of the creature cards in the army. For example, if the army is made up of Overworlders, it is to the benefit of the players to use Overworld locations in his location deck. Location cards have values that affect the disciplines that are used in a duel, and a location card can also affect the number of spells that the creature cards can use. Now we only get a chance to look at 4 location cards. Some of these may seem familiar to you guys, but we're going to take a quick look at them. So we have the Riverlands. And then we also have the Icy Glacier, which is known to be the home of the Frozen. More on that. Then, of course, we have Lava Pond, where you get to see a creature falling to his demise. And then you also get Gothos Tower. Now, Gothos was, in fact, an original character and was also implied, I believe it was in Episode 4. I have a screenshot of that on my website, dawnofthechaoticdraco.webs.com. Let's take a look at the weapon cards. Weapon cards are self-explanatory. They came in 4 styles. If I remember correctly, those weapon types were Smashing, Piercing, Range, and Transportation. They did change one of their emblems over a short period of time. And here we get a chance to look at the Book of Hinya Iha, which mentions the Frozen. Now, this is what we know about the Frozen so far, because we never did get them. It was hinted that the neutral characters in the American version were Frozen characters, the white cards. But but there's nothing to actually support that. The Frozen were supposed to be a sixth tribe that were friends to Bluegon, and they were supposed to be fox-like and magical in nature. Led by the female Hinya Iha, she was supposed to be somewhat of a supremacist, somebody who wanted to lead her people to power. Unfortunately, we never got to see that unfold, and so it left us off in a mystery. Going on with more weapon cards, we also happen to have the burst gun, which is actually a hard card to find. And then you also have the blade bracelet, which doubles as 2 weapons, not 1. It allows you to use this one and a secondary weapon at the same time. Which means if you equip this one with an Udu, which allows you to fight the deep ones underwater, you can also have a 3rd weapon. Crazy, right? Then you also have the Dark Blade. Moving on, we're going to skip past spells because I want to save that for last. I want to talk about 2 separate things. We're going to talk about discipline, and we're going to talk about power. Now, starting with power, these cards, which I'm going to scroll through here, but I'm not going to read it, because these cards actually were never used. So, the power cards were supposed to be a representation of the way that you would determine damage on your opponents. Now, this damage, however, was actually used on a separate card that had multiple little scratch-offs that would be randomized. It would never be the same no matter what card you got. So if you scratched off a little thing, it would give you a random number to deal damage, and that's how you took your chance. They later moved that over to become dice or tokens that you could randomly flip and pick out of like a bag or something. So this, unfortunately, was not relevant outside of the online game, to my understanding. I didn't actually get to see the Danish version of the game. I only ever had the cards. And that sucks, because I feel like, personally, I'm missing a big piece of chaotic history. So, unfortunately, I could not answer questions about the original website. But in the same token, you also have disciplines, which, just like the number cards, were the same thing. You would scratch off randomly on those cards what the discipline would be, and that would determine what your character's hit points would be during that battle. For example, if you pick the discipline speed, both characters engaging in battle would have hit points based off of what their stats for speed would be. It was an incredibly unfair circumstance, and the only way to get the upper hand with your opponent was if you had a character whose stats were stacked. It was an attempt to make it more, I don't want to say fair, but to give the characters and cards diversity and free range to manipulate the game halfway through. And on these cards, we have courage, power, wisdom, and speed. So, moving on, we're going to take a look at the spell cards. And I did say I wanted to save this for last because there's a big step in this. Spell cards could be used at any time. However, what you're looking at here on the screen was not how the spell cards were supposed to be. They had plans to make the spell cards separate cards within the American version, and that's why we have these images that we're looking at now. The spell cards also were originally tokens that you would get with booster packs, and you would play them at any time throughout the game, so long as there was a necessary call for it. Now, this wasn't like in Yu-Gi-Oh! Where you could do chains, or where you could do training cards in Pokemon, on your turn, but you could do them when it was necessary. There is another definition that they used that was kind of like a chain, but that's another story for another time. So the spell cards that you were looking at here are different than any other card, because these were not original cards. So you have their card number, you have the symbol, their rarity, and then of course you have this big box covered by the art piece. It says that the spell cards that make up the player's spell deck are selected to match the creatures selected for the army. Spells are powerful cards that interact with the game whenever the player chooses to use them. They can alter other spells, alter discipline codes, alter creature positions on the playing mat, and alter the drawing of cards from the draw piles. There are various types of spells: attack spells, transportation spells, healing spells, defensive spells, and meta spells. In order for a creature to cast a spell while in a player's army, that creature card must have spell 1 or greater. If there are no creatures able to cast spells in a player's army, no spells can be cast for the duration of that battle. So that means if you had no counters, well, then you had to rely heavily on brute strength and chance. Now we get a chance to look at some betas for 4 separate spell cards, where you get to see Interest battling with the original design for Groot. In the first card, which is Nodrin's Ice Shards, you get to see Nodrin battling with Goyle, who would later be named Krek. And of course, going back to this one, you'll see that there is a description here for the Advanced Shield of Kairu. And then you'll also see Wisdom Heal, where you get Sobject in what looks like Valeni. Or no, that's Venta, excuse me, not Valeni. Healing one another. And then last but not least, you get Madcap's Power of Restore. And it shows him being surrounded by Danians and healing Fracto. Let's do one more thing real quick here. And we're going to take a look at the playing board for Now or Never. Just like the American version, follows in the same steps. You have a variety of 1 to 6 cards, sometimes more, set up in a pyramid facing one another. You have your spell cards on the side, your weapon cards underneath the creatures, followed by your power deck, your discipline deck, and your location deck. So, the way that this would format would be that players would take turns either scratching off numbers, rolling dice, or drawing power cards for the sake of having a back-to-forth duel. Very similar and reminiscent to that of Rolls and Gorks, which featured the same concept with specially made dice. The only difference, of course, would be strategy, how you played your spells, and what creatures you had in their deck, as well as what abilities that these cards offered. There's not much to it. It's not as strategic as the American version, but to be fair, this game was originally marketed to 10 and 12-year-olds. So, a battle is a series of duels between creature cards. The player takes turns in selecting which of their creature cards will duel with which of their opponent's creature cards. After the dueling, cards are selected, and the attacking player will turn over the top location card in the location deck and the top discipline card in the discipline deck. Both players add up the total points under the discipline on the creature and associated weapon cards as well as the selected location card. This gives each player a score value. The player's attacking player first starts drawing from the power deck, and the value of the selected power is then subtracted from their score value to get a new score value. Basically meaning you draw a power card after you've added up the stats from your location, the stats from your weapon cards, and the stats of your character. And then you would draw a power card based off of whatever discipline is currently active to deal damage to your opponent. And you would take turns. So it would be between 5 points to 30 points max at a time. The player takes turns until one player's score value has reached 0, indicating that this player has lost the duel. And of course, each player can affect the duel at any time by selecting an appropriate spell card. The losing creature card is removed from the play area, and the player who won the duel can move any of his creature cards forward. The battle is over when a player has lost his cards. And that's pretty much it. That's everything that you need to know about the gameplay for Now or Never, minus a few exceptions. I'll continue this video, of course, in a second video in relation to the proper gaming mechanics of Now or Never that I plan to do with Lower Tier for Life. And we'll talk more about that one later on as well. Continuing on with the website, you get this amazing cover art once you click Company. And there was once a time where you could contact the beneficiaries of Apex Marketing. And this website still exists, apexm.com. It's still owned by Brian Gannon the last time I checked. Nothing fancy here to look at, but just for historical sake, we're going to keep that in the video. Going back to the home page, I plan to let this cycle through one more time. If you have any questions, please put a like and a comment in the descriptions below, or in the comment section below. And I hope to hear from you guys soon. This is Kaz Amazon, aka Elemental Draco 218, signing off.